Hello and welcome to the Roaming Dinos podcast, a podcast where we talk about all things related to the Isle, a dinosaur survival game made by Afterthought Studios. Join us as we dive into some news, hot topics, and just general conversation surrounding the Isle. This week will just be the introduction episode for the podcast. I just want to kind of get it out there, get some feedback, maybe get my ideas kind of versed out there for you guys to think about and see if there's any feedbacks you guys have for me. Something I could do to make a show more enjoyable for you. Just a little bit about what started this idea. I'm a pretty avid listener to podcasts. I really enjoy when I get into a certain subject, whether it's a video game, movie, TV show, anything like that. I really like to find podcasts to kind of accompany those. So when I'm doing the kind of more boring or tedious tasks, I have something to kind of keep my mind engaged. And whenever I was getting into the aisle, I just never was able to find anything like that. No podcast that I knew of. Um, you could only really listen to maybe some YouTube videos or something like that, but it's not really what I was looking for. So I figured since there's nothing out there and I've never really done a podcast before, maybe I would take a shot at it and see how it turns out. So just a little bit about myself. My name is Donald. I go by Donzai Bonsai in game, Discord, Steam, and I've been playing the Isle since probably mid early 2019, I believe. Yeah, mid early 2019, somewhere in that range when I first started playing. It was around the time I think the Suko had just gotten some type of remodel. I remember that being a pretty popular subject when I joined into the game and really enjoy it. I've gotten probably around like 1,500 hours into the game so far, and for it being a $20 game, I think that is a very great value to have. I found the game through some YouTubers. The main one actually being a guy called Fooster. He had some pretty good videos back then that I found pretty entertaining. And after watching him play it and a few other people, I decided I'd like to try out the game, see how it was. And then when I looked it up on Steam and found it was only $20, definitely couldn't beat that. So I went and snatched it up, got it downloaded, and got it in there, started playing. I did originally join on Fooster's server, which was a dead server at the time. Like it would only be active when he was playing, so it really wasn't that fun. And of course, there was like one other person. They were playing a T-Rex, so I joined up with them. And two T-Rexes on a dead server just was not a good time. But from there, we did move on to a few more populated servers. Played some smaller dinos like Utah, Dilo, and we did have like a little adventure at the trike early on where I only made it to sub-adult and then got killed, so I didn't play it for a while. The game itself really kind of hooked me in just with some of those adventures that we had early on, specifically one being where we were Utahs at port getting nested in, and as juvies and small adults, we were attacked by an aloe pack at port, and one of the adult Utahs led us out the back into the trees there, that little jungle area next to the little pond outside of port. We actually got attacked there as well by the aloes, and just kind of like hiding in the brush from those aloes as they were searching for me, and I could hear them smelling and sniffing and stomping. It was a really good time. Really kind of hooked me into the game, and the rest is kind of history there. I enjoy it. I still play it pretty regular today. There's times that I'll take a month or two break from it, but when I come back, I can always play it for hours and hours. It's a great time. Um, just want to kind of go over. So, one of the things I would like to do with this podcast is actually just talk to some of the players of the Isles, kind of have almost like a kind of a little one-on-one interview with some of these players, just to kind of get their thoughts on a few things for the podcast. One thing being things, like we would talk about, like maybe what some of their best moments were in the game, how they discovered the game, the current state of where everything is, like their opinions on it, what maybe some of their favorite dinos are, go over some recent news, and maybe even just look into the Isle Discord for some pretty hot topics or big discussions going on. And let's just have a little back and forth about that here on the podcast. I think that could be a pretty fun time. At least for me, it would be. I definitely got to get the feedback from you guys to see if that's something you would be interested in. But I just think those conversations would be entertaining for me. I love talking about the game, and it's like the ideas, especially right now. Right after update 3, we have such a bright future of this game. It feels like, it definitely has got the hype back going. I'm very happy with where everything's at right now and what they released with Update 3. The, Dinosuchus and the Pterodon feel really good. The flyers and swimmers there. The lunge grab, all that stuff is incredible. So I can't wait to see what they do with some of the other dinos to make them feel the same. That would be one of the biggest things. And what I would like to do with this first episode, since I don't have a guest for the first episode, it's kind of the pilot or just getting it out there, getting some practice on my end of recording, editing, uploading. This week's just going to be like a practice run for me. Just kind of get it recorded, get the thoughts out there, see how it sounds, do some editing, kind of go through the upload process, really kind of figure out how this works since this will be my first podcast. So this week, instead of having someone to interview, I'm just going to kind of go a little bit over, some things just with myself here, similar to what I would be asking other players. So we done kind of went over my start, like how I started, when I started, how I was introduced to it. The first dino I played technically was a T-Rex, but I would say the real first dino I played was a Utah Raptor with that little port adventure I mentioned where we got ambushed by the Allos. It was a pretty good time, but after that time, I don't think I really played Utah again for a good long while. It was probably in recent times that I've actually went back to playing Utah, specifically with the Adrema update where you got the pounce back and they're just a little more fun to me. The other thing I would like to check with some IL players about is just kind of find out what's your favorite dino, what made it your favorite dino, and kind of your thoughts on where the game might be heading with that particular playable. So mine, for example, would be Serato. A lot of people didn't really like it in the Legacy branch, or they would say that it was weak. I don't think so. I feel like it was actually pretty decent. I feel like it was balanced in most ways. Of course, there were weaknesses to it, but that's what made it fun. I didn't feel invincible, but I did feel like if I got to jump on most things, that I could kill them. Like even Aloe, if you jumped on an Aloe without him really knowing you were there or something like that, before he could get away from you, you could basically chomp him down. You were a little faster base run speed, so they couldn't really get away from you. Of course, with Legacy and the tail riding and all that stuff, that's no longer in Rima, but I like the agile nature. Serato did a really quick turn radius for such a decent sized dino, decent sized bite force, and the look of the Serato. I just always like the look of it there. The skin texture, the models, or skin pattern, I guess, the models, the colorations. It was all a fun time. The current direction to take a Serato, I mean, there's not really much known, but I like the idea. Really, Serato was my favorite to play with a small group, maybe 2 to 3 people, or solo. Serato was like one of the only dinos that I really enjoyed playing solo, and I like the idea that they're going to basically be the garbage cans in the aisle where you could eat rotten meat, maybe possibly bone, stuff along that nature. And then judging by the concept art, it actually looks like there's going to be some interesting playstyle here. Let me see and pull that up real quick and look at it. All right, so I have it pulled up. One thing that really stood out to me when I was looking at the concept art here was it's a few shots here of the Serato biting down on the head of the other dinos. So one, he's fighting the Maggie, and he's just kind of like chomped down on the head of it. And the other, he's kind of like straddling like a small Dinosuchus and biting down on the neck or head of it as well. Um, Kind of gives me an idea. Wonder if there's going to be some type of kind of like the grapples that they're putting in, but maybe the Serato can latch onto the head of similar sized dinos as a grapple kind of mechanic to maybe just do like some overtime damage, maybe have some kind of stand battle with them or something along those lines. That would be really cool. I would like to see that. And then, of course, the other concept art just kind of shows some Seratos fighting with each other, which shows that they do have that kind of territorialness to him. The other piece of picture here has looks like a baby Cerato's head and skeleton hanging out of his mouth, just showing that he's also a cannibal. And then of course there's a picture of him eating like some rotten, like a rotten stego, where the skull or the face is completely decomposed, and so you can see the skin looks very like leathery and decomposed there, and he's just chomping away on it, having a good time. The other interesting thing, and I don't know what they're doing with this, is they show looks like an Allosaurus chasing the Cerado, and the Cerado is actually in the water swimming from him. And I'm guessing that's a reference that the Cerado might be a decent swimmer. So if you need to escape from something like an Allosaurus or something like that, you can maybe cross a river pretty quickly to get away, or a small pond, or something. Maybe not a small pond because obviously that would be kind of like a circle, but maybe Serrano is going to be a pretty good hunter, like in the swamp area. Definitely, being able to cross rivers and stuff pretty quickly. That would be pretty interesting. So I do like those ideas. And then of course, like just the look of Serato to me is great. I love it. I love the way it looks. The Elder model that they've shown off looks great. Looks kind of just like a beefier version of the traditional Serato. So I'm pretty happy with the way they're taking my favorite dino here as far as in the game, and he's definitely going to be the main. So once they get those perks in, those growth cycles that go into being like elder stages, where you can get those what they referred to as being able to lay down and peacefully die, to have those perks transfer over to the next time you play that dino or some type of bonus there. He'll definitely be my quote unquote main for sure. Pretty excited about where they're going with him. And one other thing, just want to kind of go over my general thoughts on the game. I'm pretty positive on the game, and I know there's a lot of people in the community that aren't as positive, maybe don't share my same outlook on the game. And specifically, when I guess when it comes to the developers of the game, I don't know. I guess the personalities or things that developers do, as far as like, let's say for the biggest example is Dondi, like not really the nicest guy. But I feel like it's just part of his personality. Like he has that, it's almost like a dry sense of humor, and he will shut you down. If he feels like you're trolling him, or he feels like he's being like questioned or challenged, he definitely will come off harsh. But I don't really let that bother me. I can understand with that personality he has, and the amount of probably just constant crap that gets thrown at him per day. I could kind of understand where he's probably an irritable person, and I respect that he kind of seems to either was able to notice that, or at least his team made him notice that. And it seems like he's kind of taken a step back as far as being like directly involved with the community, because he knows it's not good for his mental health, and it's probably not good for the game and overall, with having those back and forth with like the fans or people that enjoy the game, and they're probably trying to give honest feedback to him, and he might be taking it a certain way and letting his own emotion or mentality get in the way. So I don't really have a problem with Dondi. I don't have a problem with any of the developers. I don't even want to go into the subject matter that happened with the paradigm shift situation not too long ago. I feel like they kind of did what they had to do. He's been removed from the team. He was a friend to them, so I'm sure if they didn't know about it and they found this out, through allegations, I'm sure they had to at least give him the benefit of the doubt, with him being their actual friend and the person that they knew in the situation. So once it became more apparent and it seems like they let him go, he's been, severed from the group. So I feel like that's actually a good look on them, in my opinion, as far as they did what was needed to be done. That's about all of my opinions on like the dev. Now, as far as like the actual game and where it's heading, which is really what I want to focus on here, I did just want to touch a little bit on that dev drama, but I don't really want to dive too deep into it because it's not really fun. It's very divisive and kind of polarizing for a lot of the community. Everyone has such huge difference of opinions on it. The thing I want to focus on is just the game itself, the gameplay, where it's going. So I personally love the new direction they're taking it. I do like that they recognized at some point in Legacy that they would not be able to build the game that they wanted to build with the the base code and whatever problems they were having with that. So they decided to redo it. So it did hurt us for a while there. Luckily for me, I came in 2019, mid early 2019. So I was just getting into the game. I really just had a great time with it. And by the time it was getting into that stale area, Rima was already kind of right on the horizon, about to come out. So I didn't have time to get to burn out on the game before we started getting some newer content in. So definitely understand the people that's been playing since 2015 or wherever it was that the game originally launched, and they're a little irritated by the fact that we didn't have the updates for a year and a half, 2 years, like basically nothing new. But what they did with the Rima so far, I think is pretty amazing. With the new dinos, the concepts that they're putting out there, if they can make half of what they are saying they want to put in the game come true, I think it's going to be a great game. Like I'm already super like satisfied with it in its current state after this update 3. The Dinosuchus and the Pterodon just add such a unique style to the game, with the Pterodons like flying and fishing, just being a fun like dino to play. Very short grow time. You can travel the skies. You can just be annoying and peck little dinos, or just annoy the bigger dinos. And the fishing's really cool. I think the skimming mechanic's pretty cool. And then of course the Deinosuchus is, I think, an enjoyable playstyle for me. Like I like the idea of just kind of patiently patrolling a river or maybe a swamp area, and being able to just wait for that moment to get that successful hunt in. Because those little like in between hunts, I think, are the best moments of this game, especially if you're playing a carnivore. It's one thing back in Legacy where you would go to one of the popular hotspots, such as like Trikill or Hidden, the other big areas like Twins or even Great Falls, where you knew most of the time you were going to find something. So it was fun still, but it was not as fun to me. My best moments, I feel like, was always when you found that random little group of dinos in the middle of nowhere, just kind of next to a river or maybe a little pond or something. And I think those were the best moments of the game. So I enjoy that with the Dino so far. Like some of the less popular areas, being able to find and get those kills is very satisfying. And so I'm pretty happy with that as far as where it's at right now, the direction they're taking with it. I do have a good bit of respect for them not making it a money grab, because I feel like they really could have easily explained the situation. Said, we hit a wall with the code of this game. We're going to finish this, quote unquote, legacy version of the owl best we can, and then we're going to make a new game that's going to be more of our idea. And I feel like they probably could have asked, another $20 sale price. I would have paid it. I know a lot of people probably would have not liked that as much, and that's why I do respect them as for not doing that, because a lot of people, they bought into this game very early on for the idea of what it would be, and them doing that money grab would have really soured a lot of people on it, I believe. But so I do respect them for not making it a money grab or doing anything like that. I like the idea that each dino is going to now have more of a unique playstyle or some type of niche playstyle to it, whereas it's not going to be just a cookie cutter like copy paste of each dino that Legacy kind of felt to be sometimes. Some dinos having a bit more bleed damage, some dinos like having some more weaknesses, some dinos having less potential to break their leg, but that's about all the difference you can get in Legacy. Whereas in Avrima, they're going to have the Venom, they're going to have the fracture system being updated, the new mechanics as far as fighting. One thing like with the Tanto where it has like 4 different attacks, like that's great that they're kind of expanding that variety of combat in the game. Especially, I think the herbivores need it to keep them more fun. Like being like a fun like dino to fight with will definitely make herbivores more exciting to me. Um, and then of course with the carnivores, just being able to have some of those cool mechanics, such as the Deinosuchus having the lunge grab, where you can pull things into the water, and potentially other dinos having some types of grapples or mechanics to subdue a prey and kind of keep it from running away. I think that's really cool too. I like that they're doing that. Um, very excited for the diets and elder system. I think those are two of the biggest things for me that I'm looking forward to. And I'm sure a lot of people are. But the idea of the elders and how they're going to work that in with the perks and how you can technically main a dino now and be just kind of a base level, more powerful version of that dino because you do like to play it. So you have a lot of experience with it. So not only will you get very good at the play style of it and how to counter or fight other types of dinos, um, you will also have the base abilities boosted a bit from playing that dino so much. That's really cool. I like the elders, especially the look too, like how they're going to kind of evolve into that, that more bulky version of themselves and then eventually kind of wither up and die. I think that's kind of cool. And then the also the diet system. This is probably more excited for the diets than I am the elders because the diets to me is going to really change the game. And how I touched on a little while ago, where some of my favorite moments in the game are those in between hunts. Not when you're in the very populated area where you know you're going to get something, but when you're in those in between areas and there's usually nothing there and you come across something, that's to me the most fun. And then having the diet system is just going to make that more of a normal thing because dinos are gonna, or the animals, I guess, are gonna have certain areas that are gonna have preferred food. You're gonna go through and be able to know that, like, let's say the Tenanto, from what I understand, is gonna be like a swamp herbivore. It's gonna really like the swamp vegetations and certain food types you can find in there. And there's going to be certain dinos, for example, the Cerrado has a pretty decent swimming ability, so he's going to be able to traverse the swamps pretty good. But then on the flip side of that, you also have the Deinosuchus, who's going to be in those swamps too. So he's going to be able to snag the Cerrados that are trying to wade across the water. You're going to also be able to snag the Tenantos as they're trying to eat some of the swamp vegetations, things like that. It's going to kind of create those almost like little ecosystems where when you're playing in a swamp area, you're going to see a certain type of dinosaur. You're probably not going to see too many outside of like the natives to that ecosystem, but it's going to be pretty cool to see how that really shapes us as a player base and how it's going to spread us out across the map. I just wonder how they're going to do the scents for it. Like, are like the fruits and stuff like that. Are they going to have like a different smell than the grass? Like they're the regular bushes. The bushes now just have that green to them. Are the fruits going to have like maybe a different smell to indicate, for the herbivore? Are your preferred items going to have a stronger smell to you? It's really interesting to see where they go with that. But that is definitely the thing that I'm looking forward to the most. And that's basically about it that I have to talk about so far. Again, this is kind of the intro test run of the podcast. I just wanted to kind of get some ideas, ramble a little bit with you guys. And then once I start getting some guests on here, we could probably have a little more structured conversation and I won't be so all over the place. Again, I just want to kind of go over the direction here. One big focus, I would love to just talk to players of the Isle, no matter really who they are, as long as they're willing to talk and have a good conversation about the Isle. I'd like to have them on just to kind of get their feedback and thoughts and opinions. I'll probably have a few friends that I play the Isle with a lot that are going to kind of hopefully be on the first couple episodes here. And they may be more like a reoccurring guest just because I am closer with those guys. So when I don't have anyone to bring on for the random talks, maybe I'll just bring those guys on to talk to them about some of the things going on in the Isle, like recent events, topics, and new content that they're advertising or showcasing. But that will be about it for this week, guys. I'm going to have a email created to send feedbacks to. I also have a Discord created that I'll try to get out there in some way, and I'm going to integrate the podcast into that and have like a feedback section so you can go and comment in there. Um, Tell me what you liked, what you didn't like, give me ideas of what topics you guys would like to hear opinions on. And then also, if you want to be on, if you want to have a discussion with me about it, I'd love to have you. Hopefully, I get some responses. We get some people in here to have some good conversation. But I appreciate your time today. And thank you guys for listening to Adventures on the Isle. We will see you guys next week.